vulnerability.
Therapist perception.
Bachelorette. Reactivity TV.
Yes.
Okay. Happy finale.
Let's read. Happy. Congratulations if you've made it this far with us.
I really feel like we deserve a medal. That was a marathon.
Yeah, it really was. And this is the first time I've watched the entire season. I've never been able to make it.
And this is as you said at the beginning, the longest season they've ever had. There were 16 episodes. They're usually like 10.
Yeah.
It was a lot. And then the 2 episodes a week, 4 hours a week. Oof. Mm-hmm. But we did it.
Can you tell that we're so happy that it's over? Yeah. So we made it, they made it, and now we have some exciting things to talk about that happened in this finale.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was equal parts boring, but also like packed with things. And I know when we were chatting briefly about what our moments would be, I was like, well, there's this one, and there's this one, and there's this one. So I know there were a lot of things that came up, and we promise we'll narrow it down. But what stuck out for you as one of your takeaway moments or things that you noticed?
Yes. So one of the first things that happened was like in the chunk of finale that wasn't the on stage part, but the pre-filmed actually still in paradise part, because there's other things that I know we want to talk about that happened on stage, but while in paradise, when they were down to the final couples, and those final 2 couples were pretty set on like, okay, this means we're getting engaged tomorrow. And
which we've never seen that it was that like, okay, engagement proposal. Usually it's like, will they, won't they?
Right. And I kind of thought that was it too. And I really truly believe that once they cut from the scene with Neil Lane picking out diamonds, that he was then going to say like, I actually decided that I'm not ready for that, in that conversation. But that's not what we did see. And even before that, when Johnny sat down and was about to pick out rings, and he ended up having this conversation with Neil Lane, about, which is just funny because he's just the diamond guy. But he said, I feel like I should just do this at this point. And he also had mentioned, like, I don't think anyone's ever really ready for an engagement. And I don't know if he was just pulling that from what people tend to say about having children, but it really did sound like that. I've never heard it put in a engagement pile. So he said that, and that was really surprising. That he would then still go ahead and follow through with this, because that's a huge step that you're just thinking that you should, and you're doing it just because it's something that, whether it's the show or whether it's just like this point in your relationship, that like getting to that next level of your relationship should never be based on what you think is something you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it was really kind of confusing and conflicting, because he, on the one hand, was saying, I take this decision really seriously. It's like the biggest decision I've ever made. And then he's like, well, I guess I might as well, because I'm here. Like, what? Like, those two things seemed in direct contrast to one another. And when on previous Reactivity TV portions when the Bachelorette season was on, we talked about this, about engagements and how they are meant to be a mutual decision that's based in kind of like, of course, romanticism and love, but also practicality. And here's Johnny like, okay, right place, right time, question mark. So let's do
Like
it.
I made it through the 5+ weeks of the show. So now I feel like that's what,
Or she wants it, or she's
right.
expecting it, so I should. That's kind of what I also thought he was insinuating was, well, this is what she wants, so I have to give it to her.
Yeah.
So, eek.
Yeah, definite eek. What was one of yours?
Well, I okay, so I'm pausing because I'm frustrated to have to talk about Kate again. But I did want
Okay, at least you're not talking about Genevieve. Not yet, anyway.
but I have a lot of thoughts, opinions, reactions from my like human self and my therapist self about Kate in general and the breakup with Logan. But one thing that she said that I just wanted to clarify was the use of the word projection. So when she was at the rose ceremony, Logan offered her a rose, which means that I want to move forward into it with our relationship. Kate declined the rose, and she had said, and I wish I had taken verbatim notes, but along the lines of, you have said to me that you think I am critical. You think that I look down on you. And I realize now that that's just a projection, that you are just projecting that onto me. And so therefore, like, I'm out, basically. I know what I deserve and I'm out is the gist of what she said. But she definitely did say, Logan, you are projecting these things onto me. Okay. So projection, that is an incorrect use of projection. So first, let me explain what projection is. Yes. Projection refers to unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits that you don't like about yourself and attributing those things to someone else. So like a really common example would be if there is a spouse who's cheating, but suspects that their partner is being unfaithful, right? Okay. So that projection is common. It's again this subconscious thing. It's a thing that we don't do knowingly. And it really, again, refers to the feelings that we might be having a hard time with, maybe sitting with, that belong to us. Kate used projection incorrectly because Logan's experience of feeling judged, looked down upon, and criticized were based in fact, that Logan adored her. And he had said, I feel at one point during, whether it was a recap, at some point during this episode, we heard Logan say essentially, like, I feel like I'm not good enough for her. I'm not, like, essentially is what he said, but that was based on literal words that she had said to him and about him. And so that was not a projection. It was just him expressing his feelings. And I really found it manipulative that she used the word projection, because it felt like she wasn't taking responsibility for her feelings, that she just was not attracted to Logan, or Logan didn't have the qualities that she was looking for in a partner. And she just didn't take responsibility or accountability for her actions, and kind of use this term that feels vague and elusive to put onto Logan. I mean, projection.
Yeah. You're right.
So that I just wanted to clarify.
Mhm. Well, and I think that we've seen this before in past seasons, not necessarily with projection, but with using the term gaslighting, using just like other phrases that really do happen, other types of manipulation, other things like that, that you're exactly right. When people have used these incorrectly, it's usually when they're not taking responsibility and taking accountability.
Mhm.
And she absolutely, and then she continued to do that in the post
Yeah, the
portion.
reunion. Yeah, I again, she doubled down again, and that just overall, like my overall reaction to the reunion was like general disappointment. I was so disappointed at the lack of taking responsibility for their actions, their behaviors, like as a collective whole. There were some that did better than others, but Kate did not. So yeah.
Yeah,
Did you have another moment?
I did. My other one was at the reunion, and it was between just the cutest couple, maybe in the entire world. I don't know. Um, between Michael and Danielle. I mean, first of all, their love story is just one of the most beautiful things. And I'd be lying if I wasn't tearing up last night, but sorry to admit, Bachelor in Paradise made me cry. But what moment that I wanted to highlight between them was how, and when you and I were talking about this earlier, you said this and I totally agree, not in love with the way that he did this on national television, but he did say I love you, and that was the first time he said I love you to Danielle. And the reason I wanted to highlight that was because she also had said that she said it in passing, kind of like fleetingly earlier in their relationship. I don't know how much earlier or anything, but she had said it and he didn't say it back. And so I wanted to highlight this because sometimes people feel like they need to just reciprocate the I love you right away, even when they're not feeling it. And he didn't do that. And he did it on his own time and when he was ready and when he was feeling it. And that was last night. So, or whenever they filmed that. But so I thought that was a great representation of going at your own pace and staying true to, where you're at, and also on Danielle's part, exercising patience and waiting for waiting for when Michael was ready.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think someone might reciprocate even if they're not there yet?
Oh yeah, well, they could just be they could just be worried that they could think that they have to, similar to Johnny thinking like he has to propose. He could just you could think that you have to because or you might do it just because that just seems like the most like quote unquote obvious response. It could break some awkwardness because you might not know what else to say. What other ideas maybe do you have?
Yeah, I guess my first thought is you don't want to hurt someone's feelings and you think it
Yeah.
would be kind to just reciprocate and not have them feel upset or insecure or anxious if you don't. But I think that does way more harm than good because like you are not being honest, um like with yourself and with them, and that like especially if this is a relationship that you're kind of like in and invested in, and to start it like based on that kind of dynamic isn't great.
Mhm. Yeah. So kudos to them
Mhm.
and their adorableness.
Oh, I know. I just really, I also teared up and cried. What I had said to you before too was like, I loved for us that we were able to see that and see her
Yeah.
genuine reaction. And like, he's so earnest and sincere, but like, hated for her that like we all got to witness, or that wasn't a private moment, because that was, I think he had said he's only said I love you to one other woman who was his late wife. And so it's a really big deal. But I really have appreciated watching their relationship unfold. And I think when we talked about them a few weeks ago, we had talked about how like their level of maturity and self-awareness and personal work that they've done is so evident in the way that they navigate through their relationship. And yeah, I'm still rooting for them. I had said that then. I'm still
Yeah.
rooting, deeply invested.
Yeah. Also, maybe she is happy about it because now she can replay it anytime she wants.
It's true. There's a record of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have any others?
One thing I wanted to bring up, actually, I'm going to credit one of our colleagues, Ali Rovello, with this moment because okay, so I guess the overall theme that I wanted to kind of bring to light was the construction of narratives, right? And we particularly see this highlighted in a number of relationships and some of the breakups, but Aaron and Genevieve, we see it pop up there too. And so like we all have a narrative, right? Like we all kind of construct a view of the world or a view of ourselves based on our own experiences. It's just part of what we do as humans. We're the stars of our own movie, so to speak. Um, and and that really helps us identify like our self-concept, helps kind of again create this idea of who we are, this belief of who we are. And it can also happen kind of like in a more micro level, like in an interaction or in a relationship with people, that you can also kind of create a narrative about what a story about what is going on. Again, that's filtered through your own narrative. Is this getting too meta?
No.
Okay.
I'm following.
Okay.
Is everyone else following?
And so like we see this happen like very clearly between Genevieve and Aaron, where Aaron is breaking up with her. It was the most bizarre breakup I've ever seen. That's an aside. But Aaron is saying like the reasons why he's breaking up with her, and saying essentially like the way that you handled conflict. I'm really paraphrasing here. He did not say it like this. The way that you handled conflict was not appealing to me, and doesn't make me feel really secure in a relationship going forward, especially when our feelings are this strong. Um, and that was his narrative of the relationship, of their dynamic, of Genevieve. Genevieve sat with this and then returned to him and said, I feel like you're making this whole thing my fault. And that's not actually what Erin said, but that was her narrative. That was her perspective, the story that she was hearing, the story that she was telling herself.
She was hearing, you did this wrong, you did this
Yes.
wrong, and you did this wrong.
Yes, yes. And that happens in relationships, particularly maybe if we have a narrative about ourselves or views or beliefs about ourselves, and then someone might say something that kind of fits that narrative. I imagine that that is an insecurity that Genevieve has about whether it's her reactivity or how she handles conflict or whatever, all of that stuff. And so, of course, that's what she might latch on to, and again filter through that lens of this is what Erin said, and this is how I heard it, and this is what it means. And so, like, I guess I just wanted to highlight that this is so common in any sort of relationship dynamic, even friendships, work relationships, romantic relationships, that we all kind of construct these narratives based on our own experiences, and they can really become create a wedge between you and another person if you're not willing or maybe not able to try to understand someone else's narrative. And that's what we saw happen here.
Yeah. This happens in, I don't know, 99% of my couples sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So this is so common.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so common because your experience is your experience. And it is really difficult to see another perspective. And especially in a very intimate setting of a romantic relationship where you're really vulnerable, it's really difficult to let down those walls to then peek around to the other side and even like entertain that there's another side.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's
right.
And yet it's so important to do in order to have a well-functioning relationship, because you are two different people and you are going to have two different experiences.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right. And yes, not only when we are in a romantic relationship and it's intimate and vulnerable, but when in that romantic relationship you hit a stress point, like then it's really challenging to kind of think about a different narrative or a different perspective, because not only do our defenses go up and in a way to self-protect, but even if we've done a lot of work maybe deconstructing the narrative or trying to create a new narrative together, at that stress point we might revert back to what we have been thinking and feeling and perceiving, all along. And so it can get really sticky when, especially in conflict, when two people are kind of committed to their own narrative, how to, I guess, put that aside to try to understand one another's perspective, and or in order to come to a shared understanding of what might be going on, or just a mutual respect of understanding.
Right. Well, and it is such a beautiful thing when you see it play out where because it takes one person, when one person eventually is in a state of willing to entertain another perspective, that they then are allowing the other person to then do it right back. And like when you see it happen, it is such a nice and like I said, it really is like a beautiful thing, because one person does it, lets down the walls and offers that alternative perspective, and the other person feels validated, the other person feels heard, and then they then feel that much more willing to offer it right back. So it's not like when somebody decides to do it, they abandon their narrative completely. And I think that that's what people are so worried about. They're so worried about like, but if I let go of my story, it doesn't matter. And it's not about it not mattering. It's just about sharing it with this other story.
I'm about to say a very therapist-y thing, so brace yourself. Yeah, it's not about the either or, it's about the both and. That like both of your experiences can be valid at the same time. It doesn't have to be a choice between yours or mine. And I think once just people in general can get on board with that, we'll be able to communicate better, more openly, more effectively, and less defensively.
Exactly.
Ooh, okay. um wow, okay, so that's our final recap of Bachelor in Paradise season 8,
Something
7.
like that. But I do want to say that going back to last week, we did have a bet. I lost.
I just wanted to hear you say
Amy won. Even though Johnny and Victoria broke up, they still did get engaged. So Amy, you win.
Thank
and
you. I won't be a sore winner, I promise.
So what we decided to do was like we said last week, the loser has to do whatever the winner says to do off of a self-care menu. So we will be doing that in the future.
Yeah,
I'll do whatever.
I need to think of a good challenge, a good self-care challenge for you.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for what that will be.
Yes.
for
Yes.
Catherine.
That won't happen in this episode, but it'll
Yeah.
happen in an episode in the future.
Yes.
Because we do have to think about it.
Yes. Yes.
You have to think about it.
I do. And then one thing that I might want, aside from settling our bet, but one thing I would like to do in a future Reactivity TV is really talk about maybe our major learnings about relationships based on this season. Because I think there was a lot that we discussed, and so maybe we can kind of summarize our like top takeaways from the season.
Yeah. Yeah. Great idea. We should do that. And then we'll come back with more definitely when Bachelor starts, if not sooner, with some other reality TV that our audience suggests that we talk about.
Yes, please let us know what reality TV you would like us to talk about, react to. Yes, I'm excited for a little change up.
Yeah, that could be fun.